Hello, friends, and welcome to Nerd News. I'm your special correspondent, Ryan LaPlante. I am here with special correspondent Tom McGee.
Oh, hi!
And we are ready to present you with all the news that is fit to nerd this week. Now, we have a whole rundown of a whole bunch of things going on because Thanksgiving just happened, but we recorded about 48 hours ago, and it seems like something's going on with Vin Diesel. What's happening on Thanksgiving Watch, Tom?
Yeah, so happy Thanksgiving, Ryan, if we lived in America. Otherwise, happy normal day in Canada, Ryan, 48 hours ago. So breaking news today off of Vin Diesel's own Instagram. It seems that Vin is having a sad Thanksgiving, and this made me laugh and laugh. I implore you to go look this up afterwards because you need to see the photo he attached to it. But Vin says, I got Universal in one year saying we need Fast X2 by March 2026. I have Comcast in the other year saying we need 2 movies to be the finale. Then I got the writer on Fast 5 sent me this image and said we need Dom and Hobbs, all caps, to resolve their differences. I just want to get back to real street racing, practical stunts, and a reunion of that beautiful brotherhood. Happy Thanksgiving. And the photo is from Fast 5, so before they were enemies in real life, of The Rock looking over his shoulder and Vin Diesel looking incredibly sad. Like he's Charlie Brown level sad. And since he kind of looks like Charlie Brown anyway, it's just really, it's great.
The staging of this photo looks like they both got in a fist fight and then their mom put them in timeout. Like they're not making eye contact. They are looking away from each other, but
It is incidentally how they did that final shot of them together from a few films ago when they wouldn't talk to each other or be on set together anymore. It's the same framing, except you can tell that they aren't CG'd in this time. So, progress. But anyway, very, very funny.
But Tom, how does that make you feel about this conflict between Dom and Hobbs?
And Hobbs. Okay.
What's going to happen with the end of the Fast X2?
So I got a confession to make. I have not seen Fast X yet. The Jason Momoa one. I did not like Fate of the Furious. Basically, my theory is ever since Brian left, series been on a downhill slope. So Fate, didn't care for it. Did not like it. I didn't like Charlize Theron hacking cars. Nonsense. Fine of the Furious kind of got me. I was like, all right, yeah, this is more what I want. John Cena was a treat. Didn't care for the retconning of so much stuff. But it's Fast and Furious. I thought Han was wasted on it. Weird to bring him back and have him do nothing. But they went to space and that was pretty good. And then Fast 10 got your seatbelts got announced. And I was like, I don't know. Yet another villain who's been lurking in the shadows the whole time that we've never known about. It might be one too many for me. So haven't seen it. Not thrilled about the way it's going. I just think it needs to, as Vin has said, get back to what made it good, which is like Mission Impossible level stunts performed by people who look like they would fight you for your bar stool. That's what I want. I don't need complex and then another figure from the past. I'm like, it could just be a guy who shows up and is bad. That's fine. And I think it's just my tolerance for like, I'm gonna take out your whole precious family has worn thin, because the first few times I'm like, don't touch the family. You gotta keep them safe. They gotta raise their Coronas in Brian's honor, wherever they go. And with hearing all the spoilers from 10 as well about who comes back, I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. So no, not thrilled. I'm bummed. I was ride or die, but now I'm thinking about leaving. So which means I'll probably come back for cameo and get killed in the next movie. That's usually how it goes if you want out of the franchise.
Ride or die or stay and cry. Those are your options in the Fast universe. It's going forward.
I'll tell you all about it when I see you again.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see how it all ends. It's also like a very
fascinated.
I mean, yes, and fuck you. No, I mean, the thing that I think is so sad about Paul Walker's loss in general, like regular life, absolutely tragic. And I think the thing that no one thought about while he was around in these movies is he is what he was reportedly so lovely. Every story you hear about Paul Walker is he's the nicest man in the universe. And having the nicest man in the universe at the center of a franchise with this many egos, I cannot even imagine how many times he smoothed things over that would have been a huge ego nightmare where everybody went to war. And every time without him, it just sounds like it has been a nightmare behind the scenes. And I'm like, oh, Paul really was Vince's conscience. He brought him down to earth with the rest of us.
Well, and it gave like those films like live or die on their earnesty, and everyone on that set is super earnest, which is good. No one is winking the whole time. They could be. None of them do, which is incredible. But Paul Walker on screen had like a Burt Ward in Batman 66 level of bought-in earnesty that actually none of the other actors have. None of them, and that's not like a slight necessarily to any of the other actors. It's just like a unique quality of that actor and performance that did make the whole thing feel higher stakes and more dangerous, because like I legitimately wanted good things for Brian and his family, and I appreciate that they didn't kill him off. I like that he's always like, it's Columbo's wife, just like, oh, like, you know, at one point his car shows up, and it's like, no, he's still around, because I hate when movies and TV shows lose an actor either because they quit or because the actor passes away, and then all the characters who are deeply connected to that character just like never think or reference them again. Parks and Rec did this really well when Rashida Jones left, where like Leslie Knope would just be on a phone call to Anne and be like, oh, I was just talking to Anne. And I'm like, yeah, that's how people are. But so many shows, it's like, you leave, you're dead to me. And so I appreciate they're keeping them around in the periphery. But you're right. It means that, honestly, the only person left who has that is Michelle Rodriguez. And she also has to be playing super tough Michelle Rodriguez the whole time. So you're kind of stuck. Even Dom's sister, who was kind of that, is now, everyone's a badass super ninja. And like, anyway,
it's missing the like. Paul Walker didn't have the same Hollywood baggage in terms of roles played as everybody else, which meant he could come in and kind of just be the character without being like necessarily the world's biggest action
Well, you're saying
star.
that Running Scared wasn't a cinematic masterpiece that overtook?
I don't think people think about that first when they think of Paul Walker.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's time for me to circle back to a story that we almost got into last week that I will dive into now, which is Hasbro is being sued by investors for allegedly lying about overpurchased inventory. So I'm aware that we go from super pop culture to like super business deep cut, but I'm really fascinated by what is occurring, and it could be something that plays out over years, or this could fizzle out pretty quickly, or this could get very, very big. Essentially, an investors' rights law firm, admittedly, this is all legal stuff, so if allegedly put all the things on that, I'm not a lawyer in this case, but Hasbro is being sued by an investor rights law firm that is a lawsuit that is open to become class action, so theoretically any stockholder, any shareholder, any other investor in Hasbro could get involved. And essentially what they are arguing is that the company lied about the amount of product it was storing versus actually the ability to sell. So right around the end of 2022, kind of the back half of 2022, Hasbro did a ton of purchasing and told investors that it was to mitigate supply chain risk and meet consumer demand ahead of the 2022 holiday season. This was right at the end of the pandemic. Everything had blown up. Hasbro was making a ton of money on having things for people to have at home. And then the inventory sat. It didn't actually move over the holiday season because that was, Q3, Q4 of 2022. The world was opening up after a bunch of pandemic waves. People were getting out in the world. Also, people were spending differently. And then Hasbro just said that it reflected outstanding and anticipated demand, not a decreased demand. They're saying demand is the same. We're just boxing this up, knowing that we have this to be really valuable. And then the big push isn't what happened in 2022. It's in 2023. Their revenue was down due to poor sales in the toy market. They laid off 15% of their staff, which was about 1,000 people. But they continued to tell investors that they didn't have an inventory problem. They said that they were selling, it was all selling fine and there were no problems until in October 2023, an investor asked about the stock, to which she reported that Hasbro, the chief operating officer reported, Hasbro was spending $50 million to move and market inventory as an obsolescence cost, which means this inventory has no value. We're just getting crap out of here that isn't worth it. Because of that, especially in those disclosures, the stock price dove, and everybody involved in Hasbro, the company lost about $831 million in shareholder value. So,
spicy.
Yeah, the lawsuit basically claims that Hasbro lied and inflated their initial disclosures and then tried to hide the losses as long as possible, and now everybody's kind of getting hit. So we can't comment on whether that is real or not at Nerd News, but
I can add some context to this as well.
Please do.
As a heavy investor in Hasbro, I say as I look across the army of X-Men. I've got a McFarlane boy on the mic, but rest assured, I'm flanked by Hasbro.
You are, bro.
You can see this reflected in toy sales and also in the sale of toys. If any of you in the States, our American friends, are listening to this, and you live near an Ollie's or a Ross, Ollie's, Ryan, is basically like Honest Ed's in Toronto. So it's a weird discount. Like, it's got kooky caricatures on the walls. Everything's in pallets, and it's like a stock clear out joint. And its job is to just funnel what is left of stock out into the world. In all of the action figure Reddits, but specifically the Marvel Legends one, people are showing up with their all these finds from Marvel Legends, the Marvel Legends line. Currently, there is low supply of both McFarlane Toys, who does DC, and Hasbro action figures, because both of them stripped back their production wings not almost entirely, but to a much, much, much smaller amount. What's interesting, though, is Ollie's is flooded with all this old stock. And when you look at it, you understand why. I've only been to one. I was in Niagara Falls, and I was like, ooh, I got to pop across the border and take a look. And if you look at what they've got on their walls, it's like all of the D&D movie merch did not move. So you have action figures of Hugh Grant, for instance, that just what? So a lot of D&D merch, but also this was the era of Marvel's deeply disappointing Phase 4/TV explosion. So the walls are choked with Agent Jimmy from WandaVision, or all of these obscure characters from generally WandaVision did very well, but they did Secret Invasion toys. It's no one fucking wants those. It's just they went so hard. The Marvel What If series, they made a fuck ton of zombie Wanda, and it's Captain Carter, she's gonna sell. T'Challa as Star-Lord is not gonna sell. Wakanda Forever toys, not selling. There have been a whole line of them, and it's choked out the market in a huge way. So all this to say, we're talking about big, deep cut business stuff, sure. But if you're a toy nerd on the ground like me, we're literally seeing the evidence of it right now, where the toy aisles are still choked up with all of these unmovable clearance things, which actually sounds like the inventory you're talking about, Ryan. So yeah, if you ever want to see this in action, go to an Ollie's, or up here in Canada, Winners is our version of that. We've got a whole bunch of places, and just see what is the bargain basement toy. And these are also some big characters are showing up.
Oh yeah.
But people didn't have the money, and a lot of the shine of a lot of those franchises was off. Anyway.
Yeah, and Hasbro projected to take another 14% decrease in business by the end of 2024. That's projected for this year as well. So that's 30% almost in the last 2 years, which is pretty crazy, which may be in some way related to some Hasbro news I see you have under our Showbiz finding, Tom. I'm seeing Hasbro is no longer co-financing movies.
Well, do you want to burn down our TTRPG news, or we want to jump over to Showbiz?
Welcome to the Hasbro zone.
Let's hop to Hasbro. Yeah, so also big thanks to Polygon for reporting that previous story. Mm-hmm. This one comes from Bloomberg, of all places, with in conversation with Hasbro's CEO, who is a gamer, which is nice. His name is Chris Cox, and he's the CEO over there. They have a cute story out of the gate about him opening up a booster pack of Magic cards during their meeting and being really upset that he got blue cards instead of red cards. Very humanizing. But the big thing buried in this article interview with this guy is that Hasbro is no longer going to be co-financing films based on their properties. This is important because, it means any hopes of an Honor Amongst Thieves 2 is but Transformers has not performed for them over the past little while, including the recent Transformers 1, which I understand is actually pretty charming. It just hit streaming services, so I'm looking forward to watching it. It's got a really good cast, but it did not get the uptick that they wanted. So basically, they are now washing their hands of this. This is particularly interesting because it was, 4 or 5 years ago, Ryan, where they bought Entertainment One, a massive Canadian-based production company, which they no longer have as part of a separate shenanigan festival. but it signals a pretty big move away from trying to self-generate hits based on their stuff. Now, the Michael Bay Transformers stuff, up to and including Bumblebee and the most recent one, which was also Bumblebee. It was a Bumblebee sequel, I think.
Sure, I believe
that
you.
had like the big twist ending. For those of you who don't know, spoilers for the most recent Transformers non-animated movie. But at the end, the main character is invited to join G.I. Joe because we're moving into a proper crossover universe situation. So that'll continue rolling. Those films make big bank. But a lot of their other self-financed stuff isn't. So they're taking a big step back from that. It'll be interesting to see what this does for the Magic transmedia presence they were trying to build and a lot of other things. But they are really, really closing ranks on this. And it means that some of the franchises we love, we might not see again for a bit.
Yeah, that's interesting. It'll push them more into licensing, which is what we're seeing with like the Michael Bay movie universe, that kind of thing. But it's a big risk. I mean, Tom, you and I have watched a number of companies from the outside where companies that are doing well in one field where they are making money on licensing step into the Hollywood game trying to produce their own films. And 9 out of 10 of them get eaten alive. The Hollywood industry is very much designed to be like, yeah, you can absolutely make a ton of money. We just need you to invest here, here, and here. And don't worry, let us take care of it. And then budgets balloon and the movies aren't very good, but everybody in Hollywood makes a ton of money and then people get chased out. It's just these mid-range companies that are able to come in and be like, oh yeah, we've got $80 million. And I'm like, it is the Hollywood dream. But it is really hard to find people who legitimately want to do good with that money instead of being like, I'd like $80 million. Sure.
That said, just to cap off our chat, though, if you are jonesing for some Transformers, the current Transformers comic being put out by Image by Daniel Warren Johnson and illustrated by Mike Spicer is fucking incredible. It's Robert Kirkman is kind of The Walking Dead, is essentially show running Transformers and G.I. Joe as a shared universe called the Energon universe, and it's fucking rad. Up to and including, at one point, Optimus Prime whipping out his gun, and there's music notes above his head. It just says, you know the song, because obviously they can't print the song. But I'm like, you get it. You get what's going on in my head. So yeah, definitely check it out. It's beautiful. It's also like very heartfelt and smart about who the Transformers are and why they're here. And it is built as I said, shared universe. So like G.I. Joe from day one kind of build, which has led to some very interesting stuff. But yeah, weird day for Hasbro.
Yeah, and got to be super disappointing for them with the amount of success that Mattel has had at the box office with self-produced things. Again, it bounced around, but I'll just jump over to Mattel. The Masters of the Universe movie has been announcing more and more casting as it has gone on.
It's so wild.
It is insane, the people they are getting for this project. Right now, apparently, Idris Elba is in talks. Normally, I wouldn't report on any in talks to appear on a thing because half of that, or more than half of it, is gossip. But I've been watching the Masters of the Universe casting over the last year or so, and every in talks that I've seen posted by anywhere like The Hollywood Reporter or Deadline, they've all turned out to be accurate. It's like 2 weeks later, there's an announcement. But this movie is going to have Idris Elba, if he agrees, playing Man-at-Arms, which is completely insane. Travis Knight is directing the movie. I went and looked him up. He did Kubo with the 2 strings. He's got a real background in animation, but he also did Bumblebee. Yeah. The first movie, the Bumblebee movie, is Travis Knight. So pretty good credits there for that. They've got Nicholas Galitzine.
Right, I'm sorry. I got to cut in. Did you know that he's the son of Phil Knight, the co-founder of Nike?
No, I did not. All right, so famous Nepo baby Travis Knight, who actually tells really good stories, so I'm not bitter about it in this case.
Yeah, no, he animated like Coraline, Paranorman, Box Trolls. He's on the board for
a bunch of stuff.
Great. But anyway, sorry, that blew my mind.
Do you know what? It makes sense that he's a good live action director because that's the same thing that happened with George Miller from Mad Max also did that, where he said he actually learned to be a great director by doing Happy Feet because he learned while directing Happy Feet that there is one correct place to put the camera in every scene, and animation let him try all of them to realize, nope, it's just this one. So that's paying forwards. But Nicholas Galitzine, who did Purple Heart, he's done a couple of romance things. He also did, I think, the Netflix Two Princes romance, Red, White, and Royal Blue. He's playing He-Man. Camila Mendez is playing Tila, and Allison Brie is Evil Lynn in this Masters of the Universe film.
That's when that's when like my radar clicked, where because casting Allison Brie is a very specific tone. Like, she's incredible. She can do drama, she can do comedy, but I'm like, oh, this is smart casting. You're doing smart casting. Let's go.
Yep. So fingers crossed, Idris Elba will also be joining that madness in the near future. It's scheduled to come out June 2026.
The Heimdall helmet, and he picks up the Man of Arms helmet. You know, it's
stands in the corner. It'll probably be underused in both franchises.
Hell yeah. It's the Idris Elba way.
Yeah, so to jump back to TTRPGs, because we're talking about major franchises, I found out about this through my email because I got the update on this, but The Lord of the Rings has come to D&D Beyond, and some outlets have posted this as like the Lord of the Rings RPG is coming to D&D Beyond, but it's actually a full system that's designed to work with D&D 5e rules. So you get a bestiary, you get new species, you get new subclasses and classes. It looks like there's a whole new blast of Lord of the Rings stuff coming straight to D&D, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's the One Ring system, right? I think is...
It's listed as the Lord of the Rings role-playing. So they've listed it as its own system, but this is a brand new adaptation of the works of J.R.R. Tolkien using the rules for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Wow. So it will integrate perfectly. It includes a miniature DM's guide with a new bestiary and a bunch of new stuff. So if you want to run it, it's for levels 1 to 10 in the D&D world.
So no stat block for Tom Bombadil, huh? Fucking hate
There's only
that
so
guy.
much I can offer you.
I hate him so much. Anyway, yes. Sorry, Ryan. You had a question.
You'd voice him so well, though. I just want to hear you sing gentle songs to the trees.
He's just Andy from The Office. Diddy, I live in the woods. Everyone get naked. That's Tom Bombadil. Oh, and I spilled coffee everywhere in my rage.
Tom Bombadil's famed catchshiphrase, whoop-de-doo, rit-de-dee. Written phonetically.
Show me the lie, Ryan. Show me the lie.
I can't argue with you. It's pretty good. The other system that is getting a new kind of update and restart is the DC Heroes RPG.
Yeah, this is an interesting one.
This is crazy. So it's the 40th anniversary. It's now up on Kickstarter. I've confirmed the Kickstarter will be running for about 2.5 weeks since the day this comes out, so you can still get in on this. But the design journey on this sounds pretty crazy. So they wanted to reprint the 40th anniversary, like 40th anniversary edition. But this involved, they didn't even have all the copies of the physical games, so they actually had to pull together a design team, go hunting on eBay and other areas to find pristine versions of the original books that they have brought. They are scanning, having to redraw and redo the pages where they can't get scans or can't get the info to try to rebuild the game. I have not engaged with this system itself myself, but it seems like it's got a really cool balance of if you want to play as Batman, if you want to play as all the classic DC superheroes, you can. Or if you want to create original superheroes, you can, but it's specifically designed for you to be able to kind of tell your own comic book stories using the famed heroes and famed villains of the DC universe. Tom, do you have any like thoughts on this with this one dropping? Like, what are your DC is gods and monsters, so it's kind of a different realm than when people think of Marvel role-playing games.
Yeah. So my general take with like any name brand hero style, and you see this in video games too, right? Is I know some people have a lot of fun building unique characters in those systems. I know when I played DC Universe Online and I built my guy, I just like. You pick in that game, you pick like a superhero mentor and like you can kind of emulate their powers and stuff. But ultimately, I just felt like, you know, the Superman we have at home the whole time, like just building him. I'm just like, oh, this just feels like a worse version of a character there already is. And my heart goes out to like particularly comic book creators these days because there's just it's so hard to find a concept or power set that hasn't been used by a major character at some point. So. All that to say, as that relates to TTRPGs, either like playing as the superheroes themselves is interesting and obviously very fun, and it just means your DM is trying to tell their best DC story, which honestly, pretty rad. I could get behind that. But a lot of the time, again, I just feel like if I'm making a Batman-esque character, I'd rather just play as Batman than like, I'm Dark Sparrow. I have all the powers of Batman, but I look a bit like Robin. You know, so I don't know. I'll be curious to take a look. Weirdly, like DC and Marvel, even though they have kind of slightly different tones at times, there's also a lot of the same. So if you're a fan of Marvel and you want to do that sort of stuff, there's a lot of opportunity to do that in the DC space and vice versa, right? Like there are darker characters on both sides. Like everyone always kind of comps Batman to Wolverine when they did their amalgam universe. That's who they mashed up because it would sell 1 million comics. I think his name was Dark Claw. He's very goofy. Go look him up. But like I was reading Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil and I was like, oh, this just feels like a really fucking good Batman comic because it's just a ground level, gritty, like morality based thing. So you can do whatever tone you want. But yeah, I don't know. I've yet to see a superhero system that really works for me. So I'm hopeful for this. I love that it's an archive piece. I love when people pull stuff kind of back out of the mist of time. I know a lot of our listeners and viewers have like a beloved RPG that just isn't available anywhere anymore. So this kind of project really makes me happy. The one additional angle I'll put on this though for me is I follow a lot of the indie TTRPG community pretty closely. And a project like this really, really can fuck up some indie TTRPG stuff. Because if you launch the day before or after the 40th anniversary Batman RPG, ain't no one clicking on your like The Adventures of Peter Pumpkin RPG. So I appreciate I appreciate companies getting crowdfunding in order to ensure that there is enough interest to actually run the product. But I also, not unlike, is it Father John Misty, who's like, every time I've dropped an album, Kendrick Lamar has dropped an album right next to it. And he's like, I can't escape him. It's like, it's really, really hard to not be Kendrick Lamar. So big love to indie TTRPG developers out there. We see you, and I'll play Batman, but I also want to hear about Peter Pumpkin.
Yeah. The Batman Pumpkin crossover is going to be incredible. I will say the pledged goal for this, the Kickstarter's already succeeded, but it was only $112,000 Canadian. So a very reasonable target for hopefully what is a pretty reasonable launch, though. It'll blow past and already has. No
shade to the people who post these. I mean, all of the licensed TTRPGs I've seen, the Sanderson one, they did a Blade Runner one not that long ago. They're beautiful projects. They're well designed. They're well thought out. They're not just like cash grab situations. They're just huge. And
but every show like ours covers those. We don't cover Peter Pumpkin.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely. So I will try to continue to bring attention to the Peter Pumpkins of the world as we go.
Yes, please do. I think the thing for me, I agree with you. If I'm playing a superhero thing and I have the option of just being Batman and fighting Lex Luthor, yes, please. Let's just do that. That's exciting. I will also say, if we're looking at superhero equivalents from indie publishers, it has not come out yet, but Kids on Bikes, who also did Kids on Brooms, they have what appears to be a superhero version. I think it's called Kids with Powers, coming out next year, which will be nice, narrative, heavy, rules light versions of that. So when that drops, we will happily cover some of the indie versions of great superhero games. Or if you know one, please suggest it. Continuing on the tabletop theme, though, holy crap, a lot has been going on in Warhammer. A lot of things have come out. The Warhammer World Championship, the World Championships of Warhammer, they got their specific word order, included a ton of actually big reveals and previews. There have been a number of these that go on, a couple of big events every year. Games Workshop does it, an announcement of what's being the new big previews, and they sell it as like, wait all week, and there's a timer, and it comes out. And the last two were a little reveal light. They were not the most exciting reveals in terms of what is coming out, but now things are getting much more exciting. It is a lot of stuff across a lot of systems, and it all looks real pretty. Warhammer The Old World is getting a big blast of the Empire of Man, so I'm seeing those classic hippogriffs. We're seeing some nice hero stuff. The Death Corps of Krieg are getting a full plastic Astra Militarum release. For anybody who is unfamiliar with 40K, the Death Corps are probably the most famous kind of lean-in on faction currently of the human army of the Imperium of Man. They all wear gas masks. It's very World War I kind of Germany themed.
Yeah, or Killzone, if you know that game. Like it's
absolutely.
Or the Hellgeist. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're super bleak. They are all named numbers. They march out to die because of sins of the past. The models all look incredible. It's full plastic kits. Like, it's very, very exciting for new characters. It's all there. The only thing I have heard raised on the forums that is a bit of a concern is they're like, We are worried about the people who will buy these kits who will get brought into this fandom, because Warhammer occasionally has a bit of a struggle with, shall we say, fascism. But there's also cool goblin models coming out, and we get new Ironjaws and Cruel Boys for the fantasy thing. For Horus Heresy, the Arvis Lighter, it's just like a big, ugly, bird-like looking lander, is getting an official model. And there's the biggest release is the Aeldari are getting almost a full range refresh. So the Eldar have had all of their really cool, really like beautifully aesthetic inspired warriors for a long time, and they've been slowly releasing the leaders of each of these factions, the Phoenix Lords. And it turns out they are doing a full Phoenix Lord refresh of all new sculpts and of every aspect warrior. Some of these they have literally not done a refresh since 2000. They've been 20-year-old models, and we're finally getting new and gorgeous plastic kits for all of those. So a very exciting time for anybody looking at those factions. And then the other two big things. One, very cool, very expensive. The other, one of the weirdest things I can't believe is happening currently. Weta Workshop is releasing a model of Saint Celestine, which is coming up. They do gorgeous stuff. They've done Abaddon the Despoiler before, and I think they also did Lieutenant Titus from the Space Marine 2 video game.
Yeah, Weta is the special effects workshop that Peter Jackson, I think, started or basically bought circa Lord of the Rings. And in addition to doing all of the CGI work, they also make props and other things. So going back to like Peter Jackson's King Kong forward, they've been just cranking. They're one of the best in the business for meticulously created, beautiful sculpture, even for like movies and scenes that don't deserve it, like Peter Jackson's King Kong. Just incredible showpieces. So it's amazing that they're doing Warhammer stuff. That's wild.
Yeah, and then the craziest thing is we're getting a new documentary about Warhammer from Jon Heder, the actor who played Napoleon Dynamite. I have watched the trailer. The film is called The Grim and the Dark, and it's Jon Heder trying to figure out the origins of Grimdark and looking to find John Blanche, the artist who created most of the iconic imagery of Warhammer. It is interesting. They argue the film seems targeted at both Warhammer diehards and newcomers alike. The film is not. It has no scheduled release. I don't even think it's done. But the trailer is available currently, and it's from Trademark Films. I don't know. It's fascinating. It's one of those movies where I'm like, I'm not sure who it's for, having watched the documentary, because it's him being like, apparently the home of Grimdark is here. I don't know where it is. And it like camera pans back, and it's the Space Marine statue outside Warhammer World. And I'm like, is this for getting people into this? Because this seems so soft and strange.
God, my heresy hurts real
for someone who likes Warhammer. Yeah. It's like someone showed him a Warhammer model, and he's like, I don't know what this is, and then just started making a documentary, and then was like, Charm will cover the fact that I didn't do a bunch of research. And I'm like, they have Henry Cavill, John. Henry Cavill likes this game. Does Henry Cavill do a movie, John? John. Yeah, he said the film's description implies Hader's search began due to a chance encounter at a game store, but he liked the art so much that he kept going. I mean,
anything that gets you into the hobby, man. But yeah, that is truly bizarre. Again, like, I don't know. I'm always chuffed when celebrities notice hobbies in general. Like, for me, the moment I realized that nerddom had gone mainstream, because if you're of a certain generation, Ryan and mine, and adjacent, you'll remember the days when like playing video games was shameful, right? Long before the Candy Crushes and the Flappy Birds, there was a dark time when like it was embarrassing as an adult to have a video game system and so on and so forth, and to like nerdy things. And then I remember, I think it was Adidas did a Star Wars line. It's the first time this had really happened in like fashion. And it was the Cantina from A New Hope, and it was like David Beckham and Snoop Dogg, and I was like, oh shit, they're all nerds too. And it was just this really weird moment of like, you know, the popular kids are suddenly hanging out at Mos Eisley, and I'm like, that's fucked up. And this is just, you know, further to that Warhammer, which was the most, like, Warhammer and Magic were like deeply niche, no one has heard of this, and the fact that now they're kind of front and center is endlessly strange to me.
Yeah, Warhammer, I would argue right now, is the most niche, widely popular thing. that I'm aware of, or at least people still look down on it, and they're probably right to, knowing most of the community. I love Warhammer more than anything and count myself very much a part of that community, but I get why people from the outside are like, pass. If anybody is looking for an interview with John Blanche, if you're like, I haven't met John Blanche, I haven't heard John Blanche talk, I don't know what to do. As someone who is slightly more engaged than Jon Heder, there was a Warhammer academic conference in Germany this year, 2024, for the first time, bringing people together to do a collection of academics presenting on the history of Warhammer, how the games work, the sociological effects, all that kind of stuff. But one of their banner interviews was with John Blanche. It was done, I believe, over Zoom, and it is fully available for free, as are all the talks online on YouTube. So you can hear John Blanche getting interviewed, walking through his whole career of everything. And it's incredible because most of his answers are like, oh, no, we didn't have a plan. I just drew stuff I liked.
So we found him, I guess. So Ryan and I have solved the documentary. We found John Blanche. He was on YouTube.
He's been on YouTube the whole time. He's available for free. If you go on YouTube, you'll actually know more about John Blanche's work than you probably will get from that documentary, because it's just him talking about his work for 90 minutes without trying to be charming, because he's retired and he doesn't care anymore, which is my favorite kind of interview. If we're talking about crazy people, I'm just going to segue to a story that I found that I love so much, and it's so completely out of touch. A billionaire in France stood outside a supermarket and challenged a Call of Duty fan to a fight, which happened online.
Look, Call of Duty can evoke many emotions in us. In this case, the billionaire was furious because the gamer had said he'd lost, like was basically had said, like, blame the internet service quality for a loss in a game, and he was like, "That's my fucking company. How dare you?" Which is bananas. When I first saw the headline, I thought the billionaire lost in a match. You know, he wasn't playing the objectives, so he got his ass kicked. He was like, "I'm gonna fuck up this guy," but no, just be offended on behalf of his telecom. Which is unreal.
Yeah, and the details are nuts. So this player was Jimmy BLLT, and he got heated playing Call of Duty. He lagged out and lost. So he tweeted in May of 2024 to the guy. He didn't add him. He just wrote his name. But he tweeted to the billionaire who owned the tech company that ran his internet service, Xavier Neal, I hate you. I propose a 1v1 in front of the Lidl, which is like a grocery store, on Rue Saint in Marseille. And 8 months later, in November, this billionaire posts a video standing in front of the store being like, "Where are you, you son of a bitch?" It's so crazy. And the guy, he's like, he's the majority shareholder of one of France's largest internet providers. He's worth an estimated $10 billion, and he was apparently biding his time. So the guy apologized. Jimmy BLLT, it was like, apologized, and the guy just kept trying to fight him.
Look, we had Paul v. Tyson. Now we have Jimmy BLT versus a French billionaire. You know, it's a natural progression.
I will also say, I don't know who Jimmy BLLT is, but looking at the video of this billionaire, I think an old man was going to get stomped in a parking lot. Like, if this had happened, like if Jimmy BLLT had been close.
I also like to believe that he actually meant, like, I will play you in Call of Duty in this parking lot. Like, we'll see, you know, who's faster on the SMG today. Oh, yeah, I love it. I know it's causing a lot of havoc in the world right now.
I don't love that billionaires are evil psychopaths, but I like when they do this in such an embarrassing way.
That someone who has so much money, they could, like, someone pointed this out the other day. They're like, it's amazing that we hear from billionaires so often, because you had $1 billion, you could just fucking disappear and just do what you want for the rest of your life and not care. But every billionaire seems insistent on, like, no, talk about me. And it's just like that this is your day. You know, you probably own super yachts. You have all the battle pass. You've bought the battle pass for Black Ops because you can afford it. Just go earn that dragon skin, my guy. You don't need to go fight someone in a parking lot. It's cool.
No, I saw an article about this where they were like, in previous times, billionaires learned to be secret so that if there was a revolution, no one knew who they were. And they're like, things are worse now than they've ever been, and the millionaires are shining spotlights on themselves and firing off fireworks over their heads, going, I'm important. And it seems like they're not learning the lessons of the past.
Incredible. Yeah. No. I love it. I love it.
I've seen something on Horizon, though.
Yeah.
What do you got for me here?
This one's pretty incredible, actually. So a new game was announced today, so this was reported by IGN. And a new game was announced from Tencent, which is a massive company. Tencent owns like a bunch of stuff. They're based in China. They own a lot of like communication apps and other things, but they've also bought huge swaths of the film industry, video games, all sorts of stuff. They're kind of all over the place. Anyway, so one of their subsidiaries, Player's Quest, is releasing an open world multiplayer survival game that is called Light of Motirum. If you feel so inclined to Google it, it is just Horizon. It is literally like you are a lady with a bow in a post-apocalyptic world where robots are animals. Up to, I wanted to like confirm my theories. So my wife, Adult Miles, is a huge fan of Horizon, loves it. So I went, hey, I got great news. Check out this game that just got announced. And I showed her my laptop. She's like, holy shit, Horizon 3. I'm like, you'd think so. From what I can tell, this game is actually closer in gameplay to something like Monster Hunter. So it's going to be a lot more travel around, collect your stuff. And the screenshots all make it look very cinematic. I suspect it'll be a lot more like, in order to build the next thing, you got to go kill 3 robot mammoths, and then you can craft whatever. That said, Guerrilla Games, who makes Horizon, is working on an online multiplayer Horizon. So there's a lot of question marks here. And Sony is not known for not being litigious, so it'll be really interesting to see where this goes. I don't think you can trademark robot animals necessarily, and it's obviously an idea that's been around for a long time. I'm kind of shocked we haven't seen more of it, quite frankly. But it is, it feels like the Horizon we have at home. And I also want to give big shout out to Wesley Yinpool, who wrote this article, whose sub-headline was, "Might need a lawyer." Aloy being the main character from Horizon. It was a horrific pun, and I laughed for 5 straight minutes. So big shout out to you, Wesley. Well, yeah, interesting thing. I'll be curious to see it. Again, I think it's just pictures. I think the second everyone sees it move, they're going to go, oh, that's not quite it. But yeah.
Yeah. It'll also be interesting. So in terms of like copyright and trademark law, you can't trademark an aesthetic and you can't trademark a lot of specific gameplay elements. So it'll come down to like, is it literally copied assets? Does it exactly match the gameplay? And then how similar is the story? You need a lot of Venn diagrams to overtouch. And all these companies, especially Tencent, they're not cheaping out on the lawyers. The review on this will be very good.
It's drawing a lot of parallels to Pal World. Which is the Pokemon with guns game, because Nintendo is like very, very famously goes hard at any copyright stuff. And it's been an interesting battle because they're like, this is clearly Pokemon. And the only time Pal World got into a lot of trouble is there is a design that is a little too close on one of them. But generally speaking, again, they're like
a little too close. But weirdly enough, I know about this. Nintendo only sued the Pal World creators about a month ago, if I'm remembering correctly. And from what I remember reading the articles, it wasn't even for character design. It was for 3 really specific technical coding gameplay aspects. They didn't go after any of the design, because the one risk when it comes to trying to sue over those kinds of designs is it's the same thing that actually happened to, I believe, Games Workshop.
When they tried to trademark
This
Space
is all
Marine?
alleged. I could be getting these details wrong. They sued over the name Space Marine, but they didn't go after Halo. They didn't go after any of these big games that were very much leaning on all the same tropes of a Space Marine. They chose like a small publisher, from what I remember, because Games Workshop was also much smaller at the time. This is like a long time ago. And they sued and they lost the case, and the case precedent then established that you couldn't own the term Space Marine, so it opened it up for everybody. So there is a risk of the Pokemon creators of them being like, well, you capture monsters in a ball and then you throw them out, and then the court's like, you can't own that. And then there's an official ruling that like Pokemon is available to the world. Make all the Pokemons you want. So instead, they've gone through with their lawyers and are like, we're going to go after these technical aspects that we have clear trademark on, where we're like, you did this exact thing that we own. It's going to be a really interesting stretch there. And then I think The last thing, I'll keep this one short, and then we will save our other news for the future. But for anyone out there who has bought Star Wars Outlaws and was like, this opening is too punishing, I'm not going to play it, which includes me. Star Wars Outlaws just put out a new update that some fans are unpleased with, and I think their sales will be much happier with, which is they've removed mandatory stealth fail missions. Star Wars Outlaws, especially at the beginning of the game before it opened up into the larger world, there were a ton of stealth missions where you would have to sneak into an area and get a thing and sneak back out for the story to be able to move forwards. And these were not Assassin's Creed style stealth missions where there were a ton of different ways you could pull it off. It very much felt like you need to memorize this entire ticking clock and walk through this mechanism exactly right or fail and start over and over and over and over again. And it drove a lot of people out of the game because it's super punishing. And I was like, I don't have that much time to play games, man. I don't need to feel dumb here. I feel dumb everywhere else. And they've opened those up and removed the stealth as an auto fail. If you decide to try to fight your way through the base, you're going to have a hell of a time and you're not equipped to kill everybody there. But if you stumble across one guard, you can now blast that guard and get out. The creators of the game argued it allows people to play the game more of the way they want to and immerse themselves more in being the outlaw. Some people are arguing it was a skill issue. For me, I'm excited to get back to Star Wars Outlaws because now I can get through these first 4 fucking places.
Yeah.
To figure out what the game is.
I don't put much weight in the like get good thing. I think that's just a like.
I really don't for single player games.
It's deeply irksome to me. And to be clear, I enjoy getting good on games, but that's like a personal choice, and it depends on the game. When it's what you're describing, I don't want to spend the time. If it's something like a Deus Ex or something where I'm like, oh, I just really want to do this with no kill, or Hitman, I want to do this with no kills, that's on me. Or like a Soulsborne game where I'm like, oh, it's just satisfying personally to get better at this, to run up against a wall that I can't get around and just have to like, learn my way through it. That said, like, don't yuck other people's yum. Just don't turn that, like, if no fail's your thing, like, cool, man. You can just do that. Like, you don't need to ruin everyone else's shit. Like, I would rather that more.
Yeah, I'm like, you actually had it with the auto fail.
Yes.
For a solid 3.5 months.
Yeah,
you beat this game.
So I'd much rather people can play the game than not. A. B. I'm all for stealth. I love stealth games. I have no problem with you failed to stealth, so now you got to reset. If you can approach the stealth in a variety of different interesting and intriguing ways. And I like, from the sounds of things, it is moving it more towards a Deus Ex or an Assassin's Creed or something else, where it's like, if you get spotted, now you're in a fight. And it's like, cool. Great. Just let that roll. Because like half the fun of Metal Gear, which is all about stealth, is getting caught. And then having to improvise and move. Like, no one wants to see a heist movie where the heist just goes well and you leave,
Yeah.
So that's great. I'm really looking forward to that game, to be honest. I know it did poor numbers for that. Not poor numbers. It did decent numbers, but because of the AAA bubble right now, if your game isn't like a lights out success, everyone gets mad. And I think it was the director or someone at Ubisoft was kind of like, yeah, it's kind of a bummer that like we released a really solid game, but that isn't enough. And I'm like, well, who's setting your targets, my guy? Like,
yeah. Well, and the thing that seems to be said now by people who've gone back to the game are like, oh, with the updates they did over the last 2 or 3 months, it now plays like a game I would have been really excited about at launch. So I'm like,
continues
cool.
to brook
it's
the
a
question.
Time to circle
like,
back.
And again, it's like, I appreciate the investor pressure is huge, but man, I like when games are finished when they come out. Yeah, make some tweaks, fix some bugs or whatever, but like it really feels like currently, and I understand with crunch and everything else, this is literally true, but like the user is currently the beta tester. And
yeah, stop releasing beta games.
Yeah.
Like now the beta, like, or they're releasing the alpha or whatever. But I'm like, you finish the game and make it. If you have server issues on launch, that's what we all understand. Oh, you're Helldivers and every part of your gameplay is seamless, but your servers are kind of crap off the top. Okay,
you thought you were selling
servers.
10
we'll
copies
wait a couple
of this
of days.
game, and it's become a cultural phenomenon. That's not really your fault. It's cool. Yep.
Yeah, we get that, but I think it's a strong argument for getting it right, or most importantly, getting it right in the first 4 hours of gameplay. Baldur's Gate 3 gets buggier the deeper you get into the game, and you're kind of okay with it because you're so invested. But I'm like, you have no problems for the first 10 hours. I'm like, yeah, all the annoying Star Wars Outlaw stuff is in the first 4 hours of gameplay.
All right, well, to wrap us up, Ryan, I know we've got another one recording soon, but I want to knock out 2 quick updates that duty bound to deliver Matlock watch and High Potential watch, because I got a different watch for next episode. Next episode, we're diving into Dr. Odyssey, the Doctor on a Boat show, which I watched to talk about. But Matlock continues to be good if you're following Matlock. The support cast is fine, but that show lives and dies based on Matlock's husband, and her grandkid. Very strong trio, high stakes. The heist element is great. The cases are generally very good. But man, if you asked me to pick out all of the other characters from a lineup, I couldn't do it. So that show literally is being carried on Kathy Bates' back. She's so good, and her undercover plot continues to be so good. We're doing fine. High Potential is a much better ensemble, I find. Everyone's charming and interesting. The scripting is good. She's great. Her partner's great. All good stuff. But man, the cases are getting wackier and wackier, and the resolution I'm finding is less and less satisfying. It's a Sherlock style show, so it's just like she's going to solve it using her galaxy brain. So it's not like I'm not sitting here being like, the clues don't add up. But the resolution in the past few, I've been like, I don't care for that. So still enjoying it, still going to keep watching it, but definitely I enjoy spending time with this crew of investigators and learning quirky trivia. Less satisfying as a procedural. Matlock, much more satisfying as a procedural, but I only care about Matlock. And Dr. Odyssey, hoo boy, I got some thoughts. So we'll talk about that.
We'll give that a full bullet
Ryan,
point for next week's episode.
What's the nerdy thing you're doing this week? What's on your nerd to-do list?
I am going to be running a new holiday campaign using the Never Stop Blowing Up rule set from Dimension 20. We are recording that a couple of days from now, and it'll be launching this December. When we talked about Warhammer 40K recently, the lore podcast, that's going to take a little more time. Chronic pain stuff added up and delayed scheduling. But this holiday thing is happening. We've got to wait for Jon Heder to be available to talk to, so we can't get going until he's... He's looking for me. He's looking for me, and I'm not answering
on YouTube.
Tom, what about you?
It's already been a long week, so I'll just speak to the ones I already did. I bought it's Black Friday on AliExpress. So I bought a whole bunch of flight stands and character stands because, again, I have this army of action figures kicking around. So I've just been very slowly tweaking and adjusting my setup here. And I had some guys come in the mail. So my Avengers corner is building. But yeah, I've got flight stands I'm setting guys up on. And I picked up a cheap, 12-inch The Flash action figure I'm going to convert into a Giant Man. You may remember me talking about everyone's Giant Man toy envy a few episodes ago about the $700 toy. I'm not paying that, but this $8.50 Flash figure, yeah, he can be Giant Man in my collection with some paint and some love. So I'm going to start in on that. But yeah, I'm excited. It's nice. My desk is very busy, but man, it makes my nerd heart smile. So that's my nerdy thing for the week, is just arranging my desk shit.
Incredible. Well, that was this week's Nerd News Roundup. It was all the fit. All
the fit that's nerd
it's over
to news.
Now. I tried to clever, better together. Tom, do you have a button?
I have to do my news long and news with my other hand this week because I fucked up my fingers playing Metroid on the Switch. So, nerd long and nerd, my friends.
See you next week. Thanks for tuning in to Nerd News. This series is produced by Dum Dums and Dice, edited by Ryan LaPlante, and our audio is mixed by Laura Hamstra. You can follow us on any social media platform at DumDumDice. Support us on our Patreon at patreon.com/DumDumDice, or buy cool merch from our website, dumdumdice.com. Thanks for joining us, and stay nerdy. Dum Dums and Dice has to give a special thank you to the supreme beings of our Patreon at this time: Christopher Little, George Dolby, Gavin and Abby McDonald, Fire Unfriendly, Grandma Likes D&D, Alan, Stabby Stranger, Glitch Trick, Flynn1138, Alarain Okapi, Schrodinger's Pepper, Madre de Gatos, Lady Maiden, Nithrian, Garbo Ape, Sam Schaefer, Waffle Marine, Dagger Rain, Rob L, Dia De Los Hoodless, Squishy Werewolf, Remy Funky Head, Accent Therapeutic Services in Florence, Kentucky, Lael, Shulzari, The Long Family, Jordan Oliver, Richard Wright, Brittany Fenwick, Alex Parr, Dragonfly, Megan Werner, A Man Out of Time, Curtis at FingerTechRobotics.com, Panda24NN, Shendra D, Your Homeboy Bones, Ellis Hatch, Odigenous, Beef Not Cheese, Kai Koa, Squire Solaire, Sandy Sassy Pants, Adam, Amira Lockhart, James Molina, Nick Hemsing, Alex LaFountain, Mickey Blake, Seth Cambron,
and Jill and Noel LaPlante. If you want your name to be added to this list, you can join our Patreon too at patreon.com/dumdumdice. Thanks to them, and a little bit of thanks to you.